Hey guys, Andy N, Spoken Label, back in the house. It's a freezing December afternoon where I am today. We're over Southport today. I have not been up this area for, well, last time I was in Southport, I didn't have any grey hair. So I suppose it gives you a clue how old I am. We've got a fantastic poet with us today that I met originally on a Zoom night a couple of weeks ago, and she's just bought a book out on Bentkey Publishing. So, Jen, obviously, I'll let you introduce yourself. Tell people, obviously, no, just give us a spiel then. Go. You're a politician, so you're good with the spiel.
Yeah, I think politician is one of the very many hats I wear. So I'm Jen. I live in Southport. I was born here. I've lived here all my life. I've got 5 children. So that's one of the facets that makes it to the book. So they're a really big age range because I just make really good children. So my eldest two are grown ups. They're 23 and 20. So one lives in Manchester. One is at uni in Liverpool, and then at home I've got my 14-year-old, and then my two little ones are 5 and 2. So I know you said there about being a politician. So I have, in the last few years, become a lot more involved in politics. I was elected as a Labour councillor in 2021. Was supposed to be running for election in 2020, but obviously we didn't have any elections in 2020. And by the time I was standing in 21, I was actually very, very pregnant with my youngest, but we went for it anyway, because you're never too young to get involved in politics. So I do a bit of that. I also work for a local authority. I've got a background in working in public and private sector. And then the other thing, as well as bringing a book out this year, that I've done is founded Sefton Pride as a community interest company, because I think along with the politics, you see things that you think could be better in the world. You see things that are not going in the way you feel they should. And with having these children, my neurospicy, zesty children, I want to do what I can to make things better, even on a small level, because I think those ripples spread. So we realised there was a bit of a gap, and there wasn't any Pride events locally. So that was another thing that I've done this year, is we've had a Pride event. So with my different hats on, I can either be mum or councillor, Corcoran, or Sefton Pride instigator, and all these other things. And I think they've all made their way into the book.
Yeah, that's why people wonder to talk about your book at Bentkey Publishing. But I want to ask you, look, go back in time first, because were you writing when you were much younger, or has this come to you a bit later in life?
I think I've probably always lent towards writing. I always enjoyed English as a child, enjoyed writing stories, enjoyed maybe putting a bit of something into writing that'll make people think. I can remember being at high school and we were tackling the story about Porphyria's lover, and we had to write it from the other perspective. And in this particular tale, Porphyria's lover strangles her with her own hair, which is kind of sinister, but also kind of interesting and very intimate. So I remember at the time thinking, well, I wonder if Porphyria's lover was a woman, and writing it from that perspective. And as it was being stapled onto the wall, because back in the day we didn't have digital displays when I was at high school, it's been stapled onto the wall at my Catholic high school, and they were like, oh, you've used the pronoun she, and I was like, yes, I have. But it was up there then for parents' evening. And then as I've got older, sort of the writings come out in different ways. I've written stuff and not shared it. So I've even tried bits of stories and bits of scripts and things, because I also act as well. So I've written monologues or poems for pieces, but then I've done things like in work, I've written blog pieces, and I do amateur dramatics. I'm a member of a local theatre group. So we have a column in the local paper every week. So it's just 400 words. What are we up to? What's going on? So I write that as well. So I've done writing, but it's been less creative writing and more factual writing. And then I think I've always thought, I could write songs if only I knew music, and poetry and lyrics are pretty aligned, really, aren't they? I think that you can take a lot of poetry and put it to music. And so I only really started writing poetry and getting that out there since about 2021, but I've probably always been writing in some form or another.
It's impressive going. I didn't know about the amateur dramatic side of things, but obviously, like the next question would be, and I'm going to be, and this is not nasty when I say this, how do you sleep?
Well, the only way in which I'm like Margaret Thatcher is I only need a few hours sleep at night. No,
fair enough. Yeah, I was just
that's
thinking,
the
how do you
only
manage
thing we're alike on.
that? I was just thinking, how do you manage that then? Because that's some going, that is.
Well,
Like
it takes
people,
a village, doesn't it, really? So I've always had lots of support from my parents. I think the reason I've been to have a creative voice and the reason I want to do things like Pride and the reason I want to be politically aware is I've been brought up with the attitude of you're not better or worse than anybody else and live and let live and, kindness and respect, those kind of things. And then whilst I've had my children in different shifts, my parents, again, have been the constant there and the support. And then the co-parent I share the two youngest with you, we both do theatre, so we both understand the commitment of it, so we just try and take turns to do it, really. You just try and fit it in. It's just trying to be organized.
yeah, I think he's definitely right about because it's. I've told you already, like, you know what I'm up to behind the scenes. When I'm not working in the day job. And you're right. I think it's manageable. You just got to tell yourself you're going to do it.
Yeah.
And don't let things hold you back because it was like, I know you must be the same as me in this where I've not. Well, me and Amanda, obviously my wife, we've not had a TV since we got together. In fact, it
Right.
got rid of years ago. We did before I met Amanda, and Amanda's had a TV even longer than me. That's what you just do. Like I think sometimes it's easy enough. Sometimes just to actually, isn't it? Just to
Yeah,
come in from work, click the TV on,
just switch off.
yeah, and switch it off. But I'm not on that. I've never been like that, and I think you could definitely tell with all the stuff you do, as you're the same as well. So tell us about then. How did you discover performing poetry then?
I was following Rebecca Kenny, who founded Bentley Publishing, on Instagram because we knew each other from before she was doing the poetry world. Really, we met, actually. We were both members of the Labour Party when we met, and at the same time was also Sam, who designs the book covers. Sam Sanderson
Mm.
Marshall of Smash Designs. So I knew Sam from parenting group from when my 14-year-old was little, and then I met Rebecca peripherally, and we knew we were kind of on the same page, but we kept saying, oh, we must go for a coffee sometime. And then she was moving away and those kind of things, and so we were following each other on social media, and I could see she was writing poems and things, and she was doing what I now know was her first spoken word event, which was in a forest, sort of Cheshire way, one of those poetry in the woods things. And it was really interesting because I like a bit of nature, but I'm not a natural tromp about in nature person. And this was, I think it was like August or September 2021, and I'd had a cesarean section in the June, and so I was not at my fittest, shall we say. And I was just absolutely determined that we should go to this spoken word event because my friend Rebecca was going to be there with her husband and a little boy, and let's go. So we went, and we had to carry a pram through trees and across fields. And now when I look back, there is several other poets that I really, really admire. Like Lisa O'Hare was there. There were other people where it was their first time. So I went, and I couldn't really hear any of it, but I really liked the ambience of it. So I started following it a bit. And then as Rebecca would share poets that she admired, and she was reading some of their work and stuff, I was following that. And then the thing that really made me start to think, well, actually, I should pull my finger out and start writing, was she had a life-threatening car accident, which is how she ended up forming Benki fundamentally. And I'd come in from a night out, the first time I'd been out since I'd had the baby, and I got in and I was scrolling away, and I saw on the Instagram stories this poem where Rebecca had likened the Sarah Everard verdict to, and how unlucky she was with how she encountered the person who took her life, with having a really unlucky accident on the road. So oil on the road, you can't see it coming, you're trying to keep yourself safe, and it all goes wrong anyway. And I thought, gosh, that's a powerful analogy. Then I swipe, and the next slide is her in a neck brace in the major trauma unit, and I was like, whoa, she's just written that on morphine in hospital, and she's posted it. I thought, because I kept thinking, I'm too busy, I can't write poetry, I'm too busy. And I thought, oh yeah, if she can write it while she's off her box on morphine, I can crack a little haiku out and see how it feels. And so I was just involved with that. And then Benki formed very early on in 2022, and she invited submissions. And because it was such a nice community, and so she was amplifying my work, and I was getting to know other poets just peripherally, and we were all being really nice. And I thought, I'll throw a submission in and see how it goes, because it doesn't matter whether it lands or not. And then it was accepted. So I was sort of in the Benki family quite quickly.
Yeah, no, good for you that one straight away. Because I can get you out straight with it. Is I think sometimes when you need, it's in Rebecca's case, and I can relate to this, when you have had a major change in your lifestyle, it impacts you a lot. Because I'm diabetic, and I've been writing poetry, certainly in my case, pre-diabetic, certainly. But getting diabetes changed my way my look at things
Yeah.
completely. It did. And I think you do sometimes. It's a major change in your life can actually really push you. And I think it's done the same for you. No,
Yeah.
excellent,
The
excellent with that.
perspective
So,
shifts, doesn't it? Because I'd had a
yeah.
baby and I'd got elected,
Mm.
and my first part of the book is about the kids, and I was on maternity leave at the time. You know, the baby was really little, and I wanted to write something about all the kids. And actually, when the submission was first accepted, it was supposed to be in a collection that would have been out
Oh,
in March this year, and it
right.
was Caitlin Kendall, who you've also spoken
I
with.
love Kate. Caitlin's lovely. Hi,
She's
Caitlin.
amazing. She's
Yeah.
amazing. And so I was supposed to be in a collection with Caitlin and one other woman who, because Rebecca said, you've all written on the theme of motherhood. Would you like a collection? And it was going to be out around March because, you know, you've got International Women's Day, we've got Mother's Day in this country. And it was all really lovely. And unfortunately, the third poet had some personal reasons for not being able to get involved with it. So Rebecca said to us, do you know what, guys, you've both got plenty of work. Would you like a collection each? One of you can keep that slot, the other one push back a bit. And it worked out really nicely because Caitlin was quite keen to publish before she turned 40 in May. So that March slot was perfect for her. And I, at this point, had started planning Sefton Pride for the July. And so it was election season. And I thought, you know, a couple of months grace would really suit me. And it was so generous of her because we could then expand our collections, have our own artwork, and it's worked out beautifully, and it was gorgeous because I was able to be there for Caitlin's online launch and write a poem for her, and she did the same for me. And so I feel like I've got a special bond with her from this as well. And so whilst it's been a long time coming, so it's been 18 months from submission to publication, it's also come at a time where I've had quite an interesting journey of, we've gone into the pandemic and I've had another baby, then I've come out of it, and a lot of ways I've seen the world has shifted, and I think I've developed a lot as a person. And it's very chicken and egg. I don't know whether the poetry's helped me do it or whether it's just come at a time when I'm capturing it, but it's been an interesting couple of years.
I think it's probably mix and match sometimes,
Yeah.
certainly because I think lockdowns impacted a lot of poets in a
Yeah.
lot of different ways. Where I've seen sort of lockdown, so a lot of people start writing poetry over lockdown, and I know quite a few people have stopped as well, never returned to it.
Mm.
So it's a natural progression in some ways. It's a funny thing, really. So, but yeah, I mean, dead right. In your case, your life's gone that direction post lockdown. No, mine
Yeah.
did as well in different ways as well. And yeah, I think it's interesting. It is interesting doing that straight away. Now, we should talk about obviously the book itself, and I'm going to have to ask you first of all about the title. Which mother child lover? Yeah, I know it's covering all bases really,
Yeah.
but why that title?
So it evolved actually. I was trying to think of something that captured the fact that there's a bit of everything in there, because there's the motherhood stuff that I wrote, and then there's some acrostics in there just because I like acrostics, and they're not everyone's cup of tea. And then I was emboldened by Rebecca Fithian's another poet who I absolutely
Oh
adore,
yeah,
and
yeah,
she
no Rebecca.
writes candidly about open things like mental health, but she does it in a way that she still makes you feel very safe when you're reading it, not completely challenged. She's very magical. So that inspired me to be bold with some of that, and then there's some political stuff in there. So I wanted something that captured the different hats, and it made me think of the Meredith Brooks song that was out in the 90s. So I think we're similar era, so you'll remember that. So the lyrics of that, she says, I'm a bitch, I'm a lover, I'm a child, I'm a mother. And so I thought about that for the title, but then I was a bit like, oh, I don't know if I want a swear word on there. And I'm very much about reclaiming language, but I thought I don't want to be anticipating explaining the title. So a friend had said, well, why don't you change it to witch? Because I am kind of, I don't think it's an insult to say someone's witchy. I think for me, it's about appreciating connections and nature. And, you know, there's a reason that burdock leaves grow by nettles. Do you know what I mean? I'm quite
Yeah.
into nature and healing and connections and intuition and things like that. So changing that worked. And then the lover and mother being switched around was an accident. It was just an
What was
accident,
it?
but it
Oh wow.
worked. It was just sort of a typo whilst we were back and forth on the drafts. And then but I quite liked it because, like, being a witchy mother sort of felt quite nice, because I think my mum's very intuitive, and then I've had my babies and we feel very connected, and also to an extent having the lover bit at the end, it's sort of the when you are a mother, that is kind of the other side of you can sometimes be put to one side, but again that's another thing that I'm quite confident about and quite enjoy is women being able to reclaim their space and having those different identities and it not being shameful. And there are poets that are really good at reclaiming sex positivity, like Scarlett Elson, Caitlin McKenna. There's, you know, a lot of really strong women out there. So yeah, the title was basically an amalgamation of the song title and then a little bit of a switch and then a happy accident.
Yeah, no, I get it. I think often sometimes this sort of thing, the best writing does come from an accident sometimes.
Yeah,
Yeah, no, I was wondering about that straight away because I was trying to work out
yeah.
which side of it came from. No,
But
excellent
then
stuff.
it sits with other books as well, because another poet who I adore, who I think you've also spoken with, Alice Godliman,
Oh
and
yeah, yeah, yeah,
and
yeah, yeah,
her poetry
yeah,
all being
yeah.
spells is like, oh my gosh, I first met her was at an open mic that Rebecca was doing, and it's a bit of a schlep for me from Southport to get to Manchester nights, but the ones I've been at have been amazing. And this was at like Levenshulme Library, and it was International Women's Day, and
Yeah.
Alice did one of her poems about like she's full of herself, what else would she be full of, and oh, the reclamation and the way she does things in a witchy way. And yeah,
Yeah, loved Alice's. She's read to Speak Easy twice, she has, and it's
she's
interesting,
brilliant.
really. It was like the first time she read, I felt her nerves, and then the second time, she actually bossed it on
Yeah.
stage completely. I know she'd listen to this because she was fantastic that night. She
Oh,
was.
she's so good. Yeah,
Yeah,
and she's got real presence, and
yeah,
so many of the people in the Benki canon actually, they're like, there's a connection, and they're all very individual as well, and they all inspire me, and it feels like everyone inspires each other. It's a lovely community.
yeah. No, I said, love. I said it's worth knowing. Like my case, I've I've bought quite a number of people on for Bentley Publishing, including
Yeah,
Rebecca as well. Yeah,
yeah,
there's a lot of very good poets in there. Certainly, there's more
yeah,
I'll bring it on in the future as well. So, Brady, I want to don't want to keep him forever this part. But I think we do need to talk about your Sefton Pride project you've been involved with, straight certainly
yes,
as well. And I also want a little bit more about your amateur dramatics. I didn't know about that either. The
yeah.
second one, particularly. So tell us about your Sefton Pride thing first of all, then.
Oh, so I've always been supportive of the community, and I would identify as queer, even though I'm very straight passing and have pretty much only had monogamous relationships with cis men. But I was at a Joe Lycett gig, and it was a gig that I shouldn't necessarily have been at. It was in will have been, what are we, 2023 now? It must be 2022. A friend of mine who I'd not seen in forever had messaged me on a Saturday morning at 4 a.m. or something saying, can you come to see Joe Lycett tomorrow? I've just bought tickets. And I've not seen her for ages. And it's very unusual for somebody with young children to be like, yes, I'll drop everything and come out. But for whatever reason, stars aligned, I could get out. And another friend of ours was free that day. And we all went to this Joe Lycett comedy gig. And he was talking about how he put on Pride where he lives in King's Heath, and they turned it into Queen's Heath. And he did this whole set about it. And it's really worth watching. And he had these button badges for sale that said, sometimes if you want something doing, you have to do it yourself. And I walked out of that and I went, I'm going to do Pride where I live. I'm going to do it. So I came away from it, and fortuitously, because I am a local councillor, I do have a little bit more access to certain areas. And then I also had access to an amazing youth worker called Sue Logie, who works for Sefton, because one of my offspring went to their LGBTQ plus youth group. And I was also able to be put in touch with Liverpool City Region Pride, because they'd been supporting some of the baby prides in our region. And I was able to talk to them about what were the survey results, do people want a pride? So then by January, I pulled together a group of trusted, clever, lovely people from different walks of life. So there were a couple of cabinet members from the council, one of my close friends who's got a blend of hospitality and civic life. My fellow directors now, so Alan Adams is a chap who manages the Southport Flower Show in Victoria Park, and I've known him since I was a civil servant. So we already had an established trust. And then also I'd been recommended a local head teacher who's absolutely brilliant, Natasha Sandland. And so they were part of the meeting, and there's a lot of support, a lot of willingness to support it, not very much money flying around, as you might imagine. And I'd spoke to other people, and people said, well, community interest company is probably the way to go, because you can fundraise for it in the way of it being like a charity, but equally you can draw income from it for people if, you know, there are people that end up coming on board and are using their skills, because that's the other thing with arts, isn't it? You don't want to be asking people to do anything for free, really speaking. So we just found a date where the park was free, and I started to gather together people that I already knew again, and we got the community interest company signed off in the May. we got some pledges from local businesses in the June, and it went ahead in the July, and it was terrible rain, and there were some things that went horribly wrong. But Southport Market, I don't know if you know Southport Market, it was just a traditional market. It's been redone as a food hall 2 years ago, and it's got an event space next to it. And I happened to know that it was vacant that day because the people who let it had some leave. So when we realised the rain was dreadful, it was like Friday night phone calls. Can we please have the event in the market? Yes, you can. Smashing. Somebody helped us with an amp. I rerouted my march so that it would land at the market. I booked people, and honestly, at that point, I thought, well, even if 20 people come, as long as they have a lovely time, and if one person who's gay reads it and says, do you know what, things are okay, I should be here, I deserve to be here, I was like, that I'd be fine with that. But actually, on the day, we had 400 or 500 people marching. We had loads of people in the market. We booked Ada HD, the Storytime drag queen. She was phenomenal, and then some local performers performed for free because it was the first year. And
Wow.
a local guy who runs a bookshop, a really amazing bookshop in Southport called Parkinson's Books. His name's Andy Parkinson, and he's inherited this bookshop, and he's using it to be as a diverse cultural space. So it's a bookshop, and it's got like antique things in it, but he also has raves in it, and he's had life drawing classes, and I had my book launch there. So because he also DJs, it was perfect. So it was just amazing. And we've got a date in the diary for next year, and I just want it to be something really sustainable and driven by what the community wants. And it was amazing.
Ah, that's great. That do you? We'll come on to the plans in the future in a moment, anyway, because I
Yeah.
don't want to touch on that for 24 yet. But the last thing I want to talk about before we go on to all the heart and the future plans is, and it's the thing that I didn't know about, and it always happens to do podcasts, is honestly, Jen, is your amateur dramatics. And now
Yes.
tell us about how you went into that and how does it impact you when you're performing your poetry?
I think it must help with the performing because I'm used to an audience, although I'm used to doing things in character more. I can be more comfortable in character. It's a lot more exposing being yourself. But I've always liked acting and drama. So I tended to, when I was at school, they'd give me the part that spoke first because they knew I would do it, and I was confident enough to do it. I think partly because I'm happy to speak and play a part, but also I think I was like that child that wanted the teachers to think you're good, you won't let us down. So I think it was partly driven by that. And then when I was a teenager, I saw a little thing in the paper saying we're doing a musical. If anybody wants to come to this church hall on this date, and I said to my mum, "Oh, can I go?" And she took me down, and the first day there, I met one of my best friends, and I did a musical, and I was absolutely hooked. And then I was quite academic. I think everyone thought I was going to do the A levels and university route, and then because I'd fallen in love with doing this, I ended up doing a BTEC in drama. So it's not the route anybody expected, but it was so valuable because I was a bit of a wallflower and a wait and see, whereas actually doing performing arts, I had to learn quite quickly that you've got to push yourself, you've got to put yourself forward for things. You can't just sit back and be polite. And so I've done amateur dramatics on and off for absolutely years. I've done loads of plays, a few musicals. I've been lucky enough to do some really nice parts the last couple of years. I did Beverly and Abigail's Party last year. But we do a real range of stuff. So I'm a member of the Southport Dramatic Club, and we've got Southport Little Theatre, and we put on 11 shows a year. And it's
A lot of
almost
work.
entirely volunteer run, and it's a 400 plus seater theatre. So we have a panto about to come on next week. It won't be next week by the time it's not Willie I'm talking to in
No,
December.
it'll have
But
come and
we've
gone the time
got
it's
stuff
come out.
on
Yeah.
all year. Like, it's absolutely worth checking out if you're ever bothering Southport. And we've switched it up as well because we realised people wanted to come because it's such high quality, but it's travel and it's accessibility. So we're working on that. So the pantomime each year now has signed performances in BSL, and then we've switched the way our run of our plays go. So it opens on a Friday night, then we have a Saturday matinee, and then we have evenings right through the rest. So people that don't want to come out at night or in the dark or want to travel to us, it's all that accessibility. But because I'm connected to that, I do other things, like we'll sometimes have events in the bar as fundraisers, or we'll write pieces for that. So it started off as just performing, and I think that's where I think it gives you another perspective. I think acting and putting yourself in someone else's shoes, you get to live and experience different lives, and I think it's good for your worldview.
Yeah, no, I think you definitely do. Is we do other people's works is you learn a lot about. Cause I used to do acting years ago, and it does it steps you out your comfort zone a lot of the time, straight away.
Yeah.
Brilliant stuff. Right, okay. I'm conscious of the time here now, so
Yes.
right, we'll look at the future next. Then, okay. First of all, is there going to be a Sefton Pride in 24? Do you reckon?
There is. We're definitely going to have it. We've got some artwork that's going to do us for 3 years for a start. So I want merch next year. Next year, if we can do it, we'll have the march and the free family event like we had this year. But hopefully we'll be able to book in that with a couple of evening events as well. That will very much depend on how efficient and effective I am at fundraising very early on in 2024. But
Fingers crossed. Fingers
you
crossed.
know, anybody that really wants to feel better about themselves by donating any money anywhere, do let me know.
Yeah. Provide me
No,
give me a link so I can put that on the podcast.
yeah,
Definitely.
well,
Right.
I
So
haven't got a website or anything yet because I wanted to do it slowly but sensibly so it would grow organically. So yeah, we have a date in the diary for next year, and I'm optimistic that we will grow slowly and beautifully.
sounds good to me. Now, in relation to your own creativity, then, do you have any future plans you can reveal?
Well, I have been working on so many things that it's hard to know which one I'm going to settle on really. Last year when it was NaNoWriMo, I did start writing a novel. So whether
Oh,
I'll get back to that is anybody's
oh,
guess.
oh,
But I've
blimey.
not really got it sort of took on a life of its own though. I thought it was going to be about these two characters, and then I'd write about a peripheral character, and it felt like they were tapping me on the shoulder and telling me their story. So it's ended up as a bit of a sprawling thing. And
Typical.
and then I'm also involved in a local theatre company that's just started out. So we're hoping to do something in April, and we're not entirely sure what that'll look like yet, but we're thinking of ways of making Shakespeare accessible and doing it in a performance way that we can pick up sticks and do it in various church halls. So bringing theatre to communities rather than dragging people into one building in a central place, because I'm really passionate about accessibility and about theatre being for everybody and being shaped by what people want and not being something that's out of reach, because that's another thing that Brian Dunn of Northern Poet Society, he does a lot of breaking down
Oh
the
yeah,
barriers
he goes all over the place,
class,
Brian.
and he
Yeah,
has
I've
the
only met him
stuff in
once. Yeah,
the art galleries, doesn't he? And he's
yeah,
really good at bashing at those boundaries and making things accessible. And so that's the first third, but it is also an election year for me next year, so I might have to rein it in a smidge because I've also got an election to fight, definitely a local one, and we'll almost certainly have a general election next year. So on the creativity, it's just fitting in what you can where you can.
yeah. No, I agree with you completely on that. Well, good luck with it, definitely. Right, well, I'll go into the hard sell now then. So first of all, then, where can people get hold of your book with Bentkey Publishing?
So the absolute optimum is buying it from the Bentkey Publishing website itself. So you can buy it directly from there, and then the profit share is entirely between the publisher and the author. However, we do also sell through Waterstones, which is it's nice to be able to type in and see your name on Waterstones. It's very cute. And Waterstones understandably take a share, so that's fine. Or the other thing is even going down to any events that Bentkey are at. There tends to be opportunities to have copies of the book, and we are going to be stocking it in Parkinson's Books in Southport. So if you fancy a trip to the seaside, see our gorgeous market, to see our gorgeous theatre, I would like if you're up for going to Southport at all, you can just drop me a line and say I'm coming to Southport, I want to buy a copy of the book, and I can give you a personalised tour.
Sounds good to me. I'll take you up on that if we come to Southport next year. God, I don't know where we're going on holiday next year yet, so who knows, right? So
Southport's worth a thing. It's
yeah,
worth a look, honestly. It's gorgeous.
I'll do that in the hard sell later. Now, obviously, for yourself, then, if you want people to find out more about you or get in touch, where do you recommend they go?
I don't think there's that much about me on the Benki website, but I think there will be. I mostly publish my poetry through my Instagram. So my handle there is at Renverse. So Ren as in Jenny Wren, WREN, and verse as in poetry, VERSE. So that's probably the best place, really. And I'm on there quite regularly, so I don't mind people messaging me on there, or there's more examples of poetry on there. But no, I don't think there's much. I mean, if you actually want to know about the politics side of it, you can look on the Sefton Council website. If you
You'll,
want to know more about Southport Theatre, that's a completely
yeah,
Southport Little Theatre, I should say.
yeah, easy enough to find, definitely. So, right, we'll wrap up part one, Agent. So we'll go hang around, everybody, because I'm going to get cruel and nasty next. And Jen doesn't know this yet.
Dun, dun,
So, but
dun.
she's a tough enough cookie if she'll ever counsellor to put up with criticism. So, thank you, Jen. We will all be back in two shakes of the dice.